There's one distinction in neuropathy that almost no one explains clearly. And because it is not explained clearly, people end up confused, frustrated, and constantly second-guessing whether what they are doing is actually working. The difference between symptom relief and system change. Now, they sound similar, but they are not the same thing. They can overlap, they can look identical early on, they can even improve at the same time. But they are governed by a very different set of rules. Most people experience neuropathy through their symptoms. They feel pain, burning, tingling, numbness, electrical sensations, and sensitivity that makes socks even feel uncomfortable or floors feel sharp. So naturally, progress gets judged by how those symptoms feel. If the symptoms calm down, people assume recovery is happening. If symptoms flare again, people assume something must have failed. And of course, that reaction, it does make sense, but it is very incomplete. In neuropathy, symptom relief and system change are not the same thing. Symptom relief tells you how loud the nerve signal is, while system change tells you whether the environment causing it is actually improving. Although those two things, they may sound similar, they are not. Early in care, many treatments do a good job of calming symptoms. Medications can quiet nerve firing, creams can blunt sensations, stimulation can interrupt perception, therapies can temporarily improve comfort. And of course, that relief, it matters. It helps you to sleep, it lowers your fear, and it makes daily life just more manageable. So that should never be dismissed. But this is where most people get misled. Symptom relief does not automatically mean the system is improving. It means that output has changed, not necessarily inputs. Feeling better with neuropathy does not always mean recovery has started. Often it just means the signal quieted before the system stabilized. This is where expectations quietly begin to drift. People feel better. They assume recovery must be underway. They relax their guard. They start thinking, maybe I turned the corner. Then a flare shows up, and the questions begin. Why is this back? Did the treatment stop working? Did I do something wrong? Most of the time, none of that is true. System change follows a different timeline, and it rarely announces itself with dramatic relief. Because the system that governed the nerve behavior stabilized very slowly, delivery does not normalize overnight, metabolic variability does not disappear in weeks, inflammatory tone doesn't just flatten instantly, and mechanical stress patterns, they take time to unwind. Nerves react to instability long before they recover. That means symptoms can improve before stability even exists. And symptoms can fluctuate while stability is quietly building underneath. This is the hardest part to take in emotionally, because people want consistency before they trust progress. But with nerves, progress often shows up as less chaos, not immediate comfort. You can reduce nerve pain without improving nerve resilience. That is why symptoms often calm down and then come back. The signal quiets, then it returns, then it quiets again. Not because the care was wrong, but because the system never fully changed direction. Now, let's talk about what real system change actually looks like, because this is where most people miss progress and they panic too early. System change is not the absence of symptoms. It is consistency. System change in neuropathy is not zero symptoms. It is fewer extreme days, shorter flares, and more predictability. Now, here is why that matters. When flare days shrink, the system is stabilizing. When recovery between flares is faster, the system is stabilizing. When mornings become more predictable, the system is stabilizing. Those changes rarely feel exciting. Most people almost ignore them, but clinically, they matter more than intensity. This is where people often make a critical mistake. They feel a small flare and assume they're back to square one. They abandon what was working, they add force, or they switch strategies. And in doing so, they destabilize the very progress they were building. Those quieter wins, they tell us something very, very important. They tell us the environment around the nerve is becoming more reliable. Delivery is more consistent, inflammatory swings are smaller, metabolic stress is lower, and mechanical input is less chaotic. That is what we call regulation, not suppression. This is also why chasing zero symptoms too early, it often backfires. People push harder, add intensity, they switch strategies too quickly. They mistake quiet progress for stagnation. And in doing so, they destabilize the very system they're trying to repair. Here is the part most people, they just don't want to hear. Nerves do not reward force. Nerves, they reward predictability. That is why sustainable care often looks boring from the outside. It's consistent routines, measured changes, controlled variability, and patient timelines. It doesn't feel aggressive, it just feels steady. This is also why ethical care should avoid promises, because system change is cumulative. It depends on time, and it cannot be rushed. Some nerves recover, some partially adapt, and some do not. What matters is that care respects reality instead of selling certainty. When people truly understand this distinction, something very important happens. They stop reacting emotionally to every flare. They stop resetting the process. They stop blaming themselves. They start measuring progress correctly, not by today's sensation, but by the trajectory over time. The goal in neuropathy is not silence, it is stability, because when stability improves, symptoms often follow, quietly, gradually, and meaningfully.